Welcome to Elevate, the masterclass where we dissect the elements of exceptional achievement and lifestyle design with a focus on personal growth and real estate investing. Now, here's your host, Tyler Chesser.
Elevate Nation, welcome back. This is Tyler Chesser. I'm so thankful to have you here. And wow, I am absolutely blessed. I'm absolutely amped. I'm grateful, excited to really bring you a heater today with Jairek Robbins. If you know Jairek, you know that today is going to be a phenomenal episode. It's going to be a phenomenal discussion. Your mind is going to be expanded. And all I can say is buckle up, get your popcorn ready, get your notebook ready, be ready to share this episode, because I know that Jairek is going to provide so much value in, really expanding your mind, not only expanding your mind, but really kind of giving you an opportunity to step into peak performance, stepping into being a ultra high performer, becoming the best of the best, in an effort to design your life for the vision that you have created for yourself, and expanding that vision beyond really your wildest dreams, which is what we talk about on this show. And I'm super excited about this. I could not be more excited to really bring this episode to you today. And I want to ask you the question that I always ask, are you ready to take it to another level? Because I have an idea. I think that we might go 2 extra levels, or maybe even 3 beyond where we've gone yet. And I want to welcome you back to the show where we sit down for mind expanding conversations with influential authorities in real estate, as well as top experts in other industries and disciplines. And absolutely, we've got a top expert and a world-class expert today in Jairek Robbins. It is our mission to identify and apply how the best of the best raise the bar personally and professionally to achieve greatness in real estate and beyond. We will absolutely today distill the mindset, the habits, the routines, the systems, the tools, strategies, and so much more from Jairek Robbins, who is absolutely elevating to a life without limits so that you can do the same or even more for yourself. Of course, this is a masterclass for leaders and those looking to achieve uncommon results and purposeful outcomes through personal growth, through real estate investing, other ventures, and most importantly, and ultimately in their lives. And I want to point out a few things. I start with personal growth on that description because it's what you invest in yourself is how you can show up in your business and how you can show up ultimately in your life. And really at the end of the day, it's about creating those outcomes. It's about creating the conditions of your life so that you can give to other people. So you could, like Jairek talks about, learn it, live it, give it. And, I want you to learn it. I want you to live it yourself. And I want you to give it to someone else, pay this forward, because that's how we're going to change the world. And I believe that we can do that through Elevate. And so I'm super grateful for Elevate Nation for listening. I'm super grateful for you being here. And if you are enjoying the show, we would certainly be thankful and very appreciative if you gave us a rating, a review. It's super, super helpful for us as we continue to really pour in our energy and our effort and, our love and passion into the show. If you're enjoying this, please do give us some feedback there. And it certainly warms my heart. It certainly is something that I'm highly, deeply appreciative of. So thank you for those who have left us reviews, who have subscribed, and you can be notified of new shows that we bring out. And let me tell you, we're bringing the heat. We're absolutely bringing the heat today, and we're going to continue to do so. And we're going to continue to invest in Elevate Nation. So thank you so much to everybody who's listening today. Thank you for those who have subscribed and give us a rating and a review. It's very easy to do so. Take 30 seconds and do so right now if you don't mind. And we'll continue to bring absolute massive value through the show. I also want to remind you that you can check us out on our Facebook community page, Elevate Podcast Community. Go check us out there, expand the conversation, engage with the tribe, and learn more by really connecting yourself as a part of that tribe. Also, check out the website, elevatepod.com. Of course, we've got a ton of resources there, recommended books, of course, all the content as it relates to this show. When we talk about show notes, you just go to elevatepod.com and you can actually get all of the show notes. You get links to books, you get links to, other suggestions, you get, really an expanded view of what we talked about on the show. So, it is about identifying, applying, really at the end of the day, it's about applying what you've identified to your life. So use these resources to your advantage. And we're continuing to, give this, to you for free. And if you're also appreciating this, if you're enjoying this, we just ask that you share this with a friend. Just share it with one friend. If you've already shared it with one, share it with someone else that you might find that would really benefit from listening to the show and really applying these lessons and these parts of wisdom. Really, at the end of the day, we are dissecting wisdom from some of the best in the world. And let me tell you, we've got some absolutely world-class guests coming up, and I know you've appreciated so far. So at any rate, I want to dive in. I want to introduce you to Jairek Robbins, who optimizes human performance. First of all, he's a best-selling author, and FastCompany calls him inspiring and says he'll make your life less ordinary. And man, that's inspiring myself. I want to be less ordinary in any degree that I can, and I know that inspires you as well. Forbes says that Jairek will teach you how to succeed. Deepak Chopra will advise you to go to Jairek to help create meaning and fulfillment in your life. Tracy applauds Jairek's ability to teach people how to develop meaning and purpose in life, and then to make a difference in the lives of others. Looking for ways to level up in life and in business? Well, Jairek is your guy. So I'm super excited to get started on this conversation today. And with all that said, welcome Jairek Robbins. Jairek, welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Hey, very well. Thank you for having me. Nice to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. And you know what? One thing that just strikes me about you is that you're authentic, someone who, just shows up and gives. And so I'd just be curious to know, if we were to start there, where does that come from?
So I always share this with people. If you look at and consider the concept of, are people listening to this or watching this or both?
Yeah, we're doing both, actually.
Okay, let me just draw it for you. I was literally just sharing this on another episode. But if you can give me the ability to share here, I'll show you.
Let's do this. So for all the YouTube watchers here, we've got a treat here. We're going to make Jairek the co-host. I think you're good there.
All right. Let me see. Do this. And let's see. There we go. So this should pop up. If we think about this, the concept of what inspires giving, I always look at it as if we had three kind of buckets, right? These are my versions of buckets. Art was not my major in school. But if we have three buckets and then, they're full to some extent, and the question you have to ask is, it starts with the individual person. And for the individual person to say, I am enough. So I would ask you, what has to happen for you to feel like you are enough? And if we gave it a 0 to 10 scale over here, what has to happen? If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening on the podcast, what has to happen to feel like you are enough as a human being?
Jairek, are you asking me now?
Yeah, let's hear it. Man,
you're putting me on the spot here. I like it. Gosh, I would say that, wouldn't you think that it would be a different answer for most folks? It shouldn't be, right? At the end of the day, perhaps the answer is, we all are enough, of whatever the adjective is, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Possibility.
But I always ask people, what's the evidence? What needs to happen in your life for you to finally feel like you're enough? For a lot of people, it depends on what part of life they're in. And so, the concept of I am enough, most people got to take out a pen and paper, write down the phrase, and then ask the question. What has to happen? Write out the bullets. What has to happen so that I know I'm enough? What do I got to accomplish? What do I got to do? Who do I got to be? How do I have to show up every day? How do I have to treat people? How do I have to interact? What kind of results do I need to see in my life that I know with 100% certainty in all of who I am in my being, I am enough? You got to fill that bucket. Now, one thing I have learned, just because you filled it once doesn't mean it'll stay full for life. So what daily routine, what habit, what rituals might you put in place that'll continue to help you fill that bucket and keep it full? I've met people with a $50 million, $100 million, $200 million portfolio that you say, do you feel like you are enough? And they go, well, what do you mean by that? I mean, is anyone really ever enough? I mean, what is enough? Enough what? I mean, am I rich enough? Yeah, sure, maybe, but I don't know. Like, what does enough mean? And I'm like, wow. If just a question causes that much anxiety in your body, you should probably do some work on this one. You should probably spend some serious thinking time figuring out what it means to be enough.
I love that. Jairek, if you were to attach some references and some examples to help people kind of get started on this, where would you point them?
Let me give you a few things in a moment, but let me take them on a journey and just let me show you the second piece. What does it mean? We talked about some person saying, equating self-worth to net worth for some reason. What does it mean to have enough? It's a big question. I have enough. We're at a moment in history right now. A lot of places around the world are locked down. People's businesses are closed. Things are slowing. People aren't able to pay rent. If you have a bunch of real estate investors, they might be in a tough spot negotiating with people. I met a person who had a $25 million net worth, who had enough cash in the bank to be good, who was furious because one of their tenants wasn't paying $1,200. What does it mean to have enough?
Yeah, this is a dangerous one too, because I know that most human beings never feel like they have enough.
Some do. I was browsing through Instagram a couple of years ago, and this woman caught my eye. I remember I was browsing through and I saw this woman and I went, wow. And the picture just stunned me. And I had to sit there and think for a moment. And I zoomed in on the picture and kind of looked around. And I was just blown away. And what I saw was this young woman with her little glasses on, with stitches going straight down the middle of her chest and a tube coming out that was draining fluid from her heart. And she had both thumbs up and the biggest smile I've ever seen on anyone's face. And I just went, wow. Wow. And I looked this woman up. I was like, who are you? What is this? What's going on here? Turns out this was her second double lung transplant. She had just had an open heart surgery to drain the fluid that was building up in her heart. And I interviewed her and her husband for my podcast. And they told me the whole story of what happened. It's a beautiful story. It's worth listening to. I had tears just listening to it. And I just sat there and I asked her husband, a question. He said, the biggest smile I've ever seen on my wife's face. I wish I could say it was on my wedding day. I'd be lying though. The truth is the biggest smile I've ever seen on my wife's face, he said, was the day after her second double lung transplant. She had a tube down her throat helping her breathe, so she couldn't talk. So she scribbled on a board, and as she turned it around, it said, I can breathe. And she had the biggest smile on her face he'd ever seen in his entire life.
Wow.
That's what I said. Wow. And I sat there and I thought about it for a half second. And I said, what does it mean to have enough? And I was like, man, if you've got a heart in your chest or even a pacemaker that's making everything work, and you have the ability to go and fill your lungs on your own free will, it sounds like you have more than enough to have a great life. Final bucket, looks like my pencil's running out of juice, so I'll draw this real quick and pop back off. I am loved enough. What does it mean to be loved enough? If you look at these things, most people, if you look in society, 0 to 10 scale, if you were to ask them, 0 to 10, 0 being empty, 10 being over flooded and filled, how would you respond to the statement, I am enough? If you just had to guess in society, how do you think most people feel every day?
Pretty low on the spectrum, I would guess.
What about I have enough? How do you think most people feel?
I would say the same.
And what about I'm loved enough?
I'm going to go with the same as well there.
And so if we look at these things, I'm going to charge my pencil for a moment. If we look at these things, that's a weird phrase, just thinking about it. I'm going to charge my pencil.
Yes, it is.
I remember sharpen my pencil, but I haven't thought of charge my pencil before. That's pretty cool.
That's 2020, isn't it? I like that.
Very much so.
This episode of Elevate is brought to you by CF Capital, a real estate investment firm that focuses on acquiring and operating multifamily assets that provide stable cash flow, capital appreciation, and a margin of safety. Our team, including yours truly, leverages its expertise in acquisitions and management to provide investors with superior risk-adjusted returns while placing a premium on preserving capital. Our mission is to provide property investment and asset management solutions to help investors maximize their returns by investing in high-value multifamily communities. To learn more about future opportunities, visit cfcapllc.com. Again, that's cfcapllc.com.
So if you think of, most people are running a deficit in three really important life buckets. And so if you think of how most people behave, is their general behavior about helping others, or is their general behavior about trying to fill their own buckets because there's a deficit and it's empty?
It's absolutely filling their own buckets. I love this. Thank you for this. This is awesome.
And so when you look at it, I read a book one time that talked about what most people are really challenged with. Let me show you. What most people are really challenged with, because they're running a deficit in these three buckets, because there's a deficit here, if we scroll down and look at this, life, whoa, never done that before. Life kind of looks like this. Most people are right here on their first mountain. The first mountain is all about consuming, trying to fill our own buckets. They spend all their time consuming something, consuming a book, consuming a date, consuming a project, consuming a business dude, consuming. They're always reading, learning, growing, which are good things, or partying, distracting themselves, consuming, thinking that if they consume enough, they'll finally feel full. But we know that's not true, because if we look at most people who are avidly, passionately, and consistently consuming, you just told me most people don't feel like they are enough. Most people don't feel like they have enough. And most people don't feel like they're loved enough. Well, that avid consumption seems to be adding up to this little thing called it's not working. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, this is great. This is so powerful.
And so if that's not working, what tends to happen is at some point in the future, something, a big boulder, a random sickness, a death of a loved one, something is going to whack you off mountain number one. And it's going to just jolt the hell out of you. And I'm going to need you, if you could help me for a second. I need your help with a sound effect. Could we do that? Is that cool?
Hey, you know what? As long as it's not Tina Turner or something along those lines, I probably got you here.
Okay, so the sound effect is going to be dum, dum, dum.
All right, I got that. I can do that.
Okay, ready? So something's going to knock you off the first mountain into this.
Dum.
Oh, no, hold on, not yet, too early. Something's going to knock you off into the mountain, into this place called the Valley of Despair. Okay, now.
Dum. I'm very scared. Very scared.
There you go. Valley of Despair. And what happens is, what it helps you realize is you have a giant void in your life.
Mm-hmm.
You have empty buckets. Your buckets ain't full. You've been chasing something for 10 years, and for some reason, it still feels empty. You've been working your face off, thinking if I just got to this point on the mountain, if I could just get right, if I could get right there, then everything in my life is going to be perfect. If I could consume just this much more of something, oh man, that's going to get me there. If I could just figure out how to be with that person and have that kind of family, my goodness, that's going to do everything. Something happens, it just whacks you off the mountain straight into this valley of the despair over here, the void. And all of a sudden, you got to do some work. You got to look over at these buckets and go, my goodness, what does it mean to have enough, be enough, and be loved enough? What do I got to do? What behaviors do I need to participate in every day? What behaviors do I need to do every day to actually fill these buckets? And what happens is as you make this discovery right here and you come up with your own behaviors on how to fill these buckets, you land up discovering this amazing thing called a second mountain. And all of a sudden you start hiking this second mountain. And this second mountain is about being consumed in a life worth living. You ever notice how flaky people are today?
I do.
You ever notice how people don't have a whole lot they stand for?
That's interesting. That's a really interesting question.
You notice how people aren't really connected to community in any deep way? If it doesn't bug me, it's not my problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yet people feel lonely and have a void in their life. They feel empty. They feel like they're missing something.
Yes.
This is why. And filling that void takes deep commitment. Takes believing in a cause and standing up for a cause much bigger than yourself. If you started a business on your first mountain and say, how do I make my first $1 million? How do I make my money? If you started a business on a second mountain, it says, hey, how do I help everyone I work with make $1 million? How do I help them do it? I had a client of mine, he climbed his first mountain. He cashed out a business for $5 million. He dated playmates, bought a Ferrari or a Lambo, had a condo in multiple places, flew all over the world. It's all about consuming. Was left with a giant void. He went through some really steep health issues that knocked him into the valley of despair. I talked to him recently. I said, what are you working on? He said, I'm trying to build a business. I've seen too many police officers leaving their jobs and not having a solid income right now because of the current circumstances of the world. He said, I'm trying to start a business that I think could help all those police officers have a secondary income source for life. And I went, wow, that sounds a lot different than your first business. It's all about how do I cash out, get rich, and live the life I've always wanted. Second business is how do I help all these people have an income for life? Holy Moses, how'd you get on your second mountain? He said, dude, I got cancer. I went through a surgery that they said the chances of survival are slim. I don't know if I'm going to make it or not. He said, I came out of the other side looking at those buckets very differently. That young girl on Instagram that caught my attention, she reminded me what it is to have enough. If you have a breath in your lungs on your own free will, and you have the ability to, as your heart or pacemaker ticking away, keeping you alive, you have more than enough to have a great life. But that's not what a lot of us feel every day. People live in mansions, have multiple cars, fly all over the world, and feel like they still don't have enough. So they keep consuming, thinking it'll fill the void, and it never does.
It's extremely powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's so important, because people are, they want to tell themselves they're seeking fulfillment, right? And they grow a business and they build a business. And, it's really interesting when you break it down from consuming to being consumed. And, did you make a shift yourself similarly, where you were consuming to then being consumed in your work on your second mountain? It sounds like you've gone through that whole process yourself.
Yeah, I was told I had 6 days left to live when I was 20 years old. And I remember when I was growing up as a kid, my favorite music video at 15, 14 years old was Hypnotized by Biggie Smalls and Puff Daddy. That was the coolest video ever. Yachts, planes, helicopters, girls, guys, cars. I was like, man, these guys look sharp. They're selling the dream. Man, that's what it means to have enough, to really be living. Man, all that stuff, that would be it, man. That'd be doing it. Now I have other people tell me, like, I'm not about stuff like that. But then they say, if I could just make enough money to volunteer to build a school somewhere, that would be enough. And I said, even though that's an altruistic and beautiful dream, I can tell you it won't make you feel like enough. Because you're still on the first mountain. It's about you, just something clicking. And for me, it was that moment. The doctor told me I had 6 days left to live, and something just snapped in my head. And I was like, whoa. Like, if I only had 6 days left to live, how would I live every life? How would I live everyday life? And all of a sudden, what becomes most important are your top values. The reason most people feel like they're not enough is they're living massively out of integrity with their values. If I were to ask you, what's most important to you in life? What would you say? Top 3 things.
For me, it would probably be growth, contribution, and adventure.
Cool. And so for you, if we take growth, if we take contribution, and if we take adventure, we take these 3 amazing values, and then we take a week. Say, here's the calendar. Let's see how well I could do this real quick.
The YouTube viewers are getting some value here. So if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, absolutely go over to YouTube and check out visuals here.
There's a 7th day. So if we take a week, how much time, if I were to shade in, could you help me shade in what portion of this week is filled with growth?
Are we talking about the ideal week now? We're talking about the ideal week.
Your actual day-to-day week.
It's interesting because I find growth in just about anything that I'm doing, to be honest with you. And I think that's a function of how I see the world. There's always something to learn, whether you win or lose, is what I believe. But I love that question. Perfect. Does that answer it? So
yeah. So for you, we're going to make growth purple. Or this.
Perfect.
So for you, the whole week, every hour of every day, you find growth in all that you do. Cool. So now we're going to go to contribution. We'll make it green. How much of your week is filled with contribution?
I'd say a decent percentage of it. Personally, I believe what I'm doing right now through the podcast is contribution. I think there's many other ways that I can, through coaching, through mentoring, through spending time with other people. But yeah, I'd probably have to say 30% of my time is spent in contribution.
Okay. So we'll take 1, 2, 3 days. We'll go like this.
There we go.
So we got 30% contribution, 100% growth, and then adventure. How much of your week is filled with adventure?
Being an entrepreneur is certainly an adventure. There's not enough adventure that I have. I would be honest and say that I would like more outside of just that. But this conversation in itself is an adventure. So, I definitely think that there's some adventure that I would point to. I'd probably say another 30% or so.
Okay. So the cool part is, for you, you're living in alignment with your values, which means you tend to feel pretty happy about your week.
Yeah, that's good.
Now, if we were to ask most people, how much of their week do they feel is in alignment with their top 3 values? Because most people tell me what's most important to me is family, God, and being a good person, or make impacts or difference. And I say, okay, how much time do you spend with family? And they're like, well, I get up and I see them in the morning. So, I see them like right here in the morning, and then I see them like right here at night. And I'm like, well, what goes in here? And they're like, work. But it's for my family. It's how I take care of my family. Okay. And God, where does God fit in your life? And they're like, well, God fits in like right here. You know, we try to do the 8 a.m. service on Sunday. Like, okay, it's interesting. What about making an impact? Well, on Tuesday nights, we volunteer right here at like the local elderly home to help for a couple hours. I say, okay, that seems interesting, but what the heck is happening here? The majority of the week. And they're like, I don't know. And I said, so you're meeting your values here, here, and here, which that's great. But this giant chunk of the week, you're out of alignment with what's most important to you. Now you're not. You've got this. But people listening, if you were to sit down and ask the question, what's most important to you? And you were to list the top 3 things, and then figure out what percentage of time out of the week do you spend doing these things? And if all of a sudden you were to realign your schedule to match your values, you'll find way more happiness. That's an initial. If you were to also step back and figure out the behavior, this is just an abbreviation for behavior. The behavior you have to put in place every day, the actions you have to take in order to feel that you are enough, you have enough, and you're loved enough, all of a sudden, your buckets are filled, you're living in alignment with most important to you, and the fun part is at that moment, you can forget about yourself because you're good. And when you forget about yourself and you start focusing on what you can offer to the world, you'll be consumed in projects that are called that second mountain. Things that are about serving the community around you. And all of a sudden, you'll find a deep joy that you've never found before.
Jairek,
but
this
if
is
you
awesome.
stop doing the behaviors that keep these buckets filled, at some point, you'll start to have a deficit and you'll start to get some real peculiar behavior back out of yourself. If you lose the ability to maintain your weekly schedule that's in alignment with your values, you'll start to feel sad, which will drain your buckets and cause you to be all about yourself again. But if you can maintain alignment with your values and keep your buckets filled, then you can forget about yourself and focus on service, where you'll find deeper fulfillment than you've ever found in any other part of your life. You'll feel as if you're being consumed for a mission, purpose, or activity where you're being consumed. I'll tell you how you know you're there. Time disappears. You disappear. And nothing else seems to matter. You start the activity at 7 in the morning, and all of a sudden you blink and it's 7 at night, and you go, where the heck did the day just go? And someone's like, are you hungry? And you're like, I don't know. I think so. I'm not sure. I wasn't thinking about myself. And they'll be like, well, how do you feel? And you're like, I'm not, I feel amazing, I guess. I wasn't even thinking about myself. It's where you're consumed. It's kind of like, can you fill your bucket enough so that your bucket is not only completely full, but it literally starts to overflow and spill over onto everyone around you? Can you fill yours up enough so that not only do you feel like you have enough, but you start sharing and pouring over in the people around you to make sure they feel like they have enough. Can you fill it up enough so that not only you know that you are enough, but you start pouring over in the people around you to make sure they feel like they are enough? And all of a sudden, you know, I am enough, I have enough, I'm loved enough. And my whole mission becomes, how do I help other people realize that themselves? How do I help pour over into their cup every day and keep them full as well? Whether that's a tenant, whether that's a business partner, whether that's an employee, a team member, a spouse, a child. I think the saddest thing in the world is when you have people feel like they aren't enough, they don't have enough, and they're not loved enough. And then they take it out on their kid because their bucket's so damn empty that if their kid feels happy or their kid feels like they are enough, they tear them down. Oh. And then they hate themselves for it in the future because they attacked someone that they love because they didn't feel like they were enough. So they cut them down so they didn't feel less, versus digging in and making sure you do the damn actions every day that make you feel like you are enough so that you pour into your kid every day.
Can we talk about those behaviors and those actions that you might suggest that can fill up these buckets?
So this is different for everybody. If you're going to take someone and help them feel that I have enough, they've got to sit down and define, what does that mean? I told you a definition. A young girl who's had a double lung transplant and a heart draining open heart surgery. For her, having enough was a heartbeat and a breath full of lungs on her own will. That's having enough. That's all she needs to be full. And now she pours over into everyone else's cup all day long. For other people, if they're on their first mountain, man, to have enough, they can just get that car. They can just get that mountain, that mansion. If they could live like Ty fucking Lopez, my goodness, that would really be enough. Excuse my language. If you don't know who this guy is, he's an Instagram kid who pitches the same thing that Puff Daddy and Biggie Smalls pitched when I was a kid. Mansions, cars, girls, helicopters, nice outfits. If I could just have enough. And I didn't realize that growing up. I just said, wow, if I could just get there, that might be enough. And so that concept of, for everyone, what that place looks like, that destination is different. We've all defined it differently. But if you can simplify your definition, my goodness, you might be able to jump to that second mountain much quicker. Now, I've also had people who try to disguise their first mountain as a second mountain. Young dudes do this a lot. Bro, I'm doing this to help other people. I mean, that's all that this is. This is just pure contribution, bro. I'm like, really? So if I sat down and opened up your business plan, there's no part of your business plan that says, in order to attract customers, I'm going to run a podcast talking about helping others to get them to trust me so that I get to get them to buy more of my stuff. And they're like, well, yeah, I mean, that's just business, bro. Like, no, that's a first mountain. That's okay. Just realize what bucket isn't full that's causing you to run that. Maybe it's, I don't have enough. So I think I need to use something as a magnet to get people in to buy more of my stuff so I could finally feel like I have enough. Now, some people tell me that, and they're genuinely on their second mountain. And the purpose of the entire thing they put together is, how can I serve people at the highest level? How do I make sure that I get to know every one of my guests that I could possibly connect with? I listen to them. I learn from them. I know that Jim listening right now just went through a heart attack. And I know that, Susan is starting her first real estate investment business right now. And I know that Tim's got a little kid that he works so hard to take care of, and real estate is his financial vehicle to care for his family. My goodness, the reason I'm doing this right now is I'm asking questions, and I know we're going to help Tim to make sure Tim makes enough money this month and has the right mindset so that his son can be able to have a great life. Wow, that's a different kind of show.
Hey guys, I just wanted to take a brief time out from this show, this incredibly mind-expanding discussion, to speak to the high achievers, the high performers. I wanted to speak to those who have a burning desire to go to the next level and beyond. First of all, I hear you and I see you. When I got started as a real estate entrepreneur fresh out of my W-2 corporate job, I was excited and jubilant to create and design my future. At the same time, my business and life was filled with confusion, filled with fear, doubt, uncertainty, and to be honest with you, sometimes even sleepless nights and hopelessness, even while experiencing what many would have considered substantial success. Ultimately, I mustered up the courage to hire one of the world's top high-performance business coaches to work directly with me on creating strategies, systems, and profound shifts towards accelerating my multifaceted performance and to become an industry leader. After years of investing significant resources into myself and in my business through this process, I am now paying it forward as a high-performance coach to those who feel called to elevate to the extraordinary. Wherever you are right now, you know deep down that you have it within you to be great. If you're someone who's seriously looking to elevate your business, your real estate portfolio, your cash flow, your deal flow, your network, your net worth, your lifestyle, and ultimately your life right now and ongoing for the rest of your life, I have a message for you. Because if that's you, then I invite you to visit coachwithtyler.com. I have limited coaching spots available to guide people like you who want to substantially close the gap from where you are to where you want to be. These are first come, first serve, and demand high touch, one-to-one focus from me directly to you. And this is not for everyone. This is only for those who are decisive, committed, and willing to do whatever it takes. It's only for those willing to play full out and invest time, energy, and resources into themselves to achieve greatness in real estate investing and beyond, which is what we're all about on this podcast. This is for those defiantly inspired for transforming as an empowered, limitless, and unstoppable human being in full control of their and their business's future. If that is you, I invite you to visit coachwithtyler.com. Again, that's coachwithtyler.com, where you can apply for this life-changing opportunity. We will then schedule a discovery session where we will directly discuss what's working, not working, and how we can work together to accelerate your future. With that said, enjoy the rest of the show. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's someone who deeply is invested in their community and is doing everything they can to take care of them. I have a friend who started a podcast that got really big. And he talks about how it's all about contribution, all about giving to others, all about if you can serve others, then you'll be served too. I had a friend who reached out to him and said, man, can I get you on my podcast? He said, sure, buy a ticket to my conference and I'll go on your show. My friend spent $1,500, bought a ticket to his conference, said, hey man, I bought a ticket. Can I get you on the show now? He never emailed back. Wow. First or second mountain?
Sounds like the first to me.
Clearly the first, but he's disguising it in all the ways he can as it's a second. And it's not. And if you listen to someone long enough, if you watch them close enough, they'll show you who they really are. I think too many people are trying to disguise what they're doing instead of authentically just being real. It's cool to be on your first mountain. There's nothing wrong with that. It's part of life. That's why someone discovered this and someone drew it up and someone watched long enough to go, this is what's there. And if you hang out with those people long enough, you realize they've got a big ass void in their life. If you wonder why their relationships keep falling apart, if you wonder why no matter how much money they make, it never seems to make them happy. No matter how famous they get, it doesn't quench the thirst. No matter how big of a deal they are, it's just not it. They're on the first mountain. That's okay. Eventually they'll transition. I transitioned because life kicked my ass. Trust me, if I didn't get sick and got told I had 6 days left to live, I don't know if I would have transitioned sooner. I probably would have stood on that mountain a lot longer. Not by choice, just through, I always call it fear or ignorance. Ignorance is I don't know the difference. Fear is I know the difference, but I'm afraid if I let go of this, something might fall apart. People are afraid if I stop focusing on trying to make money, I probably will make less money. And oh my gosh, money is so important because I grew up feeling like I don't have enough. Therefore, I need to make so much money to feel like I have enough. And that having enough makes me feel like I am enough. And when I feel like I am enough, I let myself finally feel loved. So they're kind of stuck. Money is how they think they're filling their buckets. It's not. And so they're stuck on that first mountain. So things that'll help you fill your buckets. I always ask people this. We're in a culture that likes to take selfies at this point. When's the last time you put your phone in selfie mode and look deeply into your own eyes? They say eyes are the windows to the soul. When did you look past your human form deep into your own soul? And when's the last time you spent 5 minutes looking deeply into your own soul through your eyes and allowed yourself to just express in any way that seems right what you appreciate about yourself, what do you acknowledge about yourself, and what do you love about yourself? Now, it would be egotistical if you stopped skin deep and just stared at your face and told yourself what you love, appreciate, and adore about yourself. But it would help fill the bucket if you went past deep into your own eyes, through the windows of your eyes, all the way into your soul, and just acknowledged. And by doing that behavior for 5 minutes a day, every day, I wonder if that might help fill your bucket. I appreciate you. I adore you. I acknowledge you. And I love you. And then you kept pouring in reasons why. I appreciate you because you have a kind heart and you do good to others. I acknowledge you because you show up and do the work every day. And I love you because of who you are. And that's it. And I appreciate you because you're a good mama or a good papa. I acknowledge you because you care. And I love you because, you show up every day. And you just keep going for 5 minutes. I have not met a person on earth yet that does this and doesn't have tears streaming down their eyes within 5 minutes. And all that tells me is they've had a really empty bucket for a long time, because only 5 minutes makes them feel so full that it starts to leak out their eyes. My goodness, take 5 minutes a day and pour into it. It's not egotistical. Go past your human form. Get into the soul of who you are. A spiritual element represented as a human form. Forget your human form and get deep into your spiritual self, your soul. Go deeper. Use your eyes as a window to access. Having enough. Heartbeat, lungs. My goodness. Remind yourself of that every day. If you want to find this young woman and be inspired, find her on Instagram. Her handle is fight2breathe. Fight to breathe. She fights every day to be able to breathe. And most of us take it for granted. I am enough. A little bit of a mystery. I gave you a hint earlier. Align your values with your behaviors. All of a sudden, if your weekly schedule matches your top values, you tend to feel like you're enough. You're doing exactly what you were made to do. You're doing exactly what's most important to you. All of a sudden, you have a formula that helps you fill up your own buckets and keep you full. I think if more people are full and forget about themselves, they'll elevate to their second mountain and they'll serve a purpose bigger than themselves. They'll find deep fulfillment, joy. It's all kinds of research that shows how it increases your happiness, fulfillment, joy, personal performance. All the stuff you wanted on the first mountain tends to happen when you're naturally on the second mountain.
I'm deeply appreciative that you went through that, because I think it's so powerful, especially for entrepreneurs. A lot of times people are striving for more and they may not even be conscious of it, but they're really striving for more to really prove that they are enough and that they have enough and that they are loved. And, if you're listening to the show and maybe that really speaks to you, you don't have to beat yourself up for that. I think consciousness and awareness is the first step. And once you are conscious of, perhaps you are on that first mountain, you can start to say, well, what are my values and how can I live in alignment with my values? Would you agree to that, Jairek?
100%.
I love that. I love that. What a beautiful, beautiful. And by the way, this is the most unique podcast I've ever done. I love where we went with this and you sharing the screen. So again, I want to remind the listeners, if you are listening here, please go over to YouTube and watch, because Jairek, you may not be an artist. Maybe you're not Leonardo da Vinci, but very, very powerful in terms of the the descriptions there and everything you just went through there. But Jairek, I just really loved this conversation. And I want to say that, this is enough. Absolutely. We are now not the consumers. We are, stepping into being consumed, not with ourselves, but with other people and something bigger than ourselves. And so I know that everyone has learned so much today, but if you will indulge me, I've got a few kind of rapid fire questions for you, which I call the rare air questionnaire. And it's all about really being enough and going on that second mountain and elevating, others around you, elevating, the lives of other people and living, in alignment with fulfillment and meaning. And so I'd love to know, if you were to point to 2 or 3 of the most impactful books that you've read over the past few years, what would those be and why?
So if you're interested in finding the second mountain, there's a book called Second Mountain. You should probably read it and it'll help you evolve through it. If you want to better understand your journey in life and what stage you're in and what's natural at that stage and what might be coming next, you might want to read the book, The Amazing Development of Men, or The Queen's Code for Women. If you want to, be inspired of the difference just kindness can make in the world, there's a book called Cool to Be Kind. It's a group of Canadian kids who took an RV and drove around the US on a summer trip, just doing kind deeds and what difference it made to all these people's lives.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. And we'll absolutely put links in the show notes there. And Jairek, if you had to point to the biggest way outside of what we've already talked about today from a deeply philosophical and conceptual perspective, but otherwise, what's the biggest way that you elevate your life on a daily basis?
So there's certain daily behaviors and patterns that keep me at my absolute best. I was just sharing this on another podcast before you, and I'm not going to redraw it, but I'll show it to you for those who are watching. If you look at this concept, if you want to be at your absolute best, we need to find a way to help make sure that you're healthy, fulfilled, and strong. And then if we look at your mind, body, and emotions, if you're mentally, you've evolved from chaos to clarity, you're physically evolved from a broken down body to a high performance body, then all of a sudden you're truly healthy. If your body is evolved from a broken down body to a high performance machine, and emotionally, you've gone from a roller coaster of emotion to a master of emotion, then you're strong. And if you have mind, body, and emotion all in the right place, that helps you be happy, strong, and fulfilled, which we talk about being your best you. And so if you scroll up, how do we help you get healthy? And it's like, well, we need to be able to clear the mind, calm the mind, and focus the mind. And so I went through, there's 9 things around here, but I went through 3 on that show. And it's saying, there's certain things we do. A 3-minute ice cold shower every single morning. It clears the mind. Learning how to use your breath. Little box breathing by Mark Devine, ex-Navy SEAL. How do you keep calm under heavy and extreme combat conditions and under extreme pressure? And focus. How do you focus when there's chaos everywhere around you? There's a breathing pattern. You can see it. I drew it there. 4 seconds in through your nose, hold for 2, breathe out for 4, hold for 2, repeat. It'll focus your mind. Meditation, Muse, Headspace, the Calm XPT breathing. It's an app you can download. All these things are so important. They're tools that I use every single day to help keep my mind in a place of absolute clarity. If I gave you it a scale, 0 to 10, how would you rate the clarity of your mind? Number 1 or 2, we'd call that a hurricane. Hurricane's not very clear. If I asked you, how clear is your mind this week? And you said, well, it's about a hurricane. It's not what we want.
Maybe
3, 4, 5, a thunderstorm. 6 or 7, you got some brain fog. 8, 9, 10, absolute crystal clarity. Do you have daily habits to help maintain absolute clarity in your mind? That's a big question. And so what are some of the things we do? I just showed you. 3-minute ice cold shower, breathing techniques to help maintain absolute clarity of my mind.
That's
other
super
things
powerful.
We do for physical and other things we do for emotional.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And very, very valuable for everybody to identify these tactics and apply them to your own life. So thank you for sharing that, Jairek. If you had to point to, obviously, I know you do many things here, but I'd love to know if you had to point to the biggest way that you elevate other people around you, what would you say to that?
Second mountain, pouring into their buckets every day. We have the privilege, we have clients in 115 countries around the world actively learning with us through our online programs and trainings. And every single day we've built stuff that helps them keep their buckets full, and that allows them to ripple into their community and pour into their community all around them.
That's awesome. Well, I know that you've poured into so many buckets today and really, awakened the consciousness to what is possible and towards living in alignment. So I'm deeply grateful for you. I just want to acknowledge you just for who you are. And I loved that I asked you that question about, being a giving soul and what ensued from that. So thank you for all of this. And thank you for taking time today, Jairek. Is there any other parting thoughts or words of wisdom that you'd share with Elevate Nation today?
Take time to fill your buckets. Figure out, I have a simple life philosophy. Learn what it takes to have the life you want. Go out and live it fully, and then find a way to pay it forward and help others. Another way to say that is climb your mountain. Achieve everything you've ever desired. Realize it ain't it, and spend the rest of your time pouring over into everyone around you.
Mic drop, my friend. Mic drop. Jairek, tell the listeners how they can learn more about what you do and be engaged with you and follow you along your journey.
Sure. We help people in three categories. And how to avoid a heart attack, divorce, or bankruptcy. On the what they want, how to have lasting, the lasting love legacy with love, passion, and partnership. Human performance, how to be happy, strong, and fulfilled, which I already showed you a piece of. And the third one is in their business. I believe, number one, you got to take care of yourself so you can forget about yourself. Number two, you got to find someone to share it with. Otherwise, it'll get pretty lonely. And number three, you need a business to be able to take care of everybody, including yourself and your family and the ones you love in your community. So the third one, we help people amplify and magnify or you could say elevate their revenue, profit, and free time so that they can spend time with the ones they love, aligned with their values each week. So if you're looking to elevate your business, elevate your love life, or elevate your human performance and be the best you, reach out to us. Find me on Instagram at Jairek Robbins, or check out my website. It has all the information.
Yeah, and we'll put links in the show notes there, JarekRobbins.com, of course, where you can find Jairek all over social media. And I do want to share that we do have a free 2-hour training for business owners at JarekRobbins.com/SOS. So you want to check that out. Of course, we'll put that link there in the show notes as well. But Jairek, what an amazing time to spend together. And thank you for really showing up and giving to other people and just everything that you do. So I'm just super grateful for you. And I just want to, extend my gratitude, my deepest sense of gratitude towards you.
So very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, my friend. We'll talk to you soon, sir. Wow. Elevate Nation. Oh my goodness. What just happened, right? The most unique podcast that we've ever done here on Elevate. There's no doubt about it. If you're a usual listener, I would encourage you to watch this one for sure. So go and check that out on YouTube. And because there's so much visuals that Jairek pulled out. I was not expecting that. I was not expecting him to share his screen, share everything that he's got going on. But what an amazing guy. And there's so much takeaways. And I've got a full page of notes here, but this is one of those shows that really kind of hits you in the gut, right? I think if you've listened to many of the others and, you're looking for tools, you're looking for tactics, strategies, and all these things, you start to recognize, well, wait a minute, what path am I going down? Is it a path that's really trying to fill the void of being enough or having enough or, being loved enough? And then starting to recognize that, wait a minute, the way I'm spending my time is not in alignment with the values of who I truly am as a human being. And I think, it's one of those things. I think I mentioned it a few minutes ago, is that, it's not something that we need to beat ourselves up for, but it's something for us to recognize and say, hey, what a blessing to have this information and to have this message really, shared with us in our life. so that we can now look and draw that line in the sand and say, you know what, I'm going to live in alignment with my values, and I'm going to find references and attach more references to the fact that I am enough, I have enough, I'm loved enough. And, it's not about me and creating, more material wealth in my life, but it's about losing myself in my future and in the future of, contributing to other people and forgetting about yourself, being a part of a bigger cause. How powerful, what an amazing shift that I think if, those that are listening today can really start to apply to their own life, will really change the trajectory of their life. And so I know that if you've listened to this show today, you might say, wow, this is a, certainly a different podcast. One of those that you probably didn't expect. And I'll be honest, I didn't either. I didn't expect it to go that way. I thought I was going to have a conversation, and you know what? It ended up being so much better and so much different, and extremely powerful. One of those that's really going to last for a long, long time. So I'm just super grateful for everyone listening. I want to encourage you to re-listen to this show. Identify, if I had to say my top 3 distinctions, I might have to expand that a bit. And so what are your top 3? What are your top 5 key distinctions? And how can you share this with someone else? Because I don't know about you, but what everything Jairek was talking about today is really the human condition. I mean, this is not, isolated to a certain type of individual. Most of us need to live in more alignment with our values and recognize which mountain are we on. And so obviously you want to go read the books that Jairek, suggested here, but it is about understanding and applying this in your own life. So pay it forward and share this with someone else who would really benefit from listening and engaging in this type of discussion and applying this to their own life. And I would also encourage you to re-listen to the show. I know that I will myself. I always do, not only from a learning perspective of, hey man, let's get better at this so that we can continue to grow, we can continue to contribute more. But it's also, there's so much wisdom in what Jairek was sharing. And definitely want to encourage you to re-listen to the show. But at the end of the day, it is about taking massive action. And it's not about, taking more action so that you can create more material wealth, but it's about creating more meaning and fulfillment in your life. And so, you don't have to just add days to your life, but you can add, life to your days. And, it's such an empowering and exciting process to learn, to grow, and to really become more, because of the fact that you realize that it's not about, the lack, but it's about having everything that you need. And so with all this said, Elevate Nation, I just want to thank you for tuning in, and I will look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you for listening to Elevate. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to elevate your results by taking immediate action on what you learned. For more, visit elevatepod.com.